Marvel Studios' Eternals has hit, and as we told you before, with a $200 million production budget, easily another $100 million in global P&A, that's print and advertising or marketing costs, a very common figure these days for these Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. You know, this movie had to deliver, and here we are, the opening weekend, $118 million, another $162 million in the ex-US areas, the global areas, for a total worldwide cume of $281 million. What a great start for this film, really surprising, and what? What do you mean? That's not the opening weekend? That's the first two weekends? Two. Never mind. Renegade Online. Ooh. Yikes. Okay. Well, wow. So here we are, the first two weekends of the Eternals. Yikes. Yeah, this movie's not making its money back. Let's just go ahead and call it now. It's a turkey. This is the second one in a row for Marvel. Shang-Chi performed a little bit better than I anticipated. I'll give it that. And I did finally get a chance to see it. It did perform a little better than I expected. However, it still did not reach its break-even point, which I said before would be a minimum of around $450 million. Remember, folks, this is a 45-day limited window for theaters. Disney is putting these things on Disney Plus 45 to 60 days after their theatrical release. You just can't command the same rental agreements with these theaters under conditions like that you could get before all of this day-and-date release started, before the pandemic-era lockdowns. This is one of the reasons why Chapek has stated that he wants to keep his options open in terms of what to do with these theatrical releases. And I'm sure he's looking at something like Eternals right now, especially after the investor call earlier this week. And we are now at our second weekend that had a very precipitous, roughly 63% drop. I was thinking the second weekend drop was actually going to be a little bit more. But then again, it's really hard to tell how much of things like Gold House with their hashtag Gold Open, hashtag One Open, where they're basically a non-for-profit that's dedicated towards buying out theaters for certain movies. And this was one of the movies that they were doing that with, of course, meaning they're basically astroturfing the box office numbers. To what extent, we don't know. But if we look back at the first weekend, where Eternals, it was thought at one point by Deadline that Eternals could easily fall under the $70 million mark and was expected to come in maybe even around 67 to 68 million. But then Sunday afternoon came around and they magically got it a little over 70 million to 71.5, I believe. So even if just 2 to 3 million of that box office was a bit of astroturfing by this non-for-profit, you can see where we're at. And then the second weekend, it's going to float in around 27 million. This is a really, really bad start for a movie that had such a relatively high hurdle to clear. And as I've said before on this channel a number of times, I really think Chapek is at the point right now. He is looking at some of these other films out there. He's looking at things, particularly right now, like Venom, and asking himself, why is it we are spending so much more to produce these Marvel films when movies like Venom are coming in many cases, around half the cost of production? And frankly, Venom is now globally outperforming Shang-Chi. So this is something that Disney, I'm sure Bob Chapek is really going to be digging into. And again, this is a continued issue with Mr. Feige at this point. What is going to keep happening with Phase 4? We've got 2 Phase 4 movies that have come out so far. Both are going to be losing money at the box office. So I don't see at this point how this movie breaches $550 to $600 million at this point. I really don't. The other part of this, obviously, is the international figure is significantly higher than the domestic figure, which means the average take on this overall is even lower because international box office receipts return even lower yields to the film studio than does the U.S. market. So this is a problem. And I think at this point, especially on the earnings call, which if you missed my last video, we discussed some of the information that was detailed in there. But basically, the theatrical distribution and licensing department of Disney had an operating loss for the fourth and final fiscal quarter of their fiscal year 2021. And I projected that given what's coming up now, what we're seeing with the Eternals, really nothing else big on Disney's slate between now and the end of the year, we will probably see another operating loss for that division for Disney once we get the next report late January, early February of 2022 for their first fiscal quarter of 22. This is an article from Deadline that came out yesterday morning, and it has since been updated, and I had to chuckle at this one. It's a very good piece, but it's almost as though some folks at Deadline are watching my channel for the last several months, and they're starting to echo a lot of the things that I have said here. What is more likely, though, however, obviously all joking aside, is that the Hollywood publications are starting to come to the realization, at least publicly, of things that we have been talking about now for months. So I want to go through some of this article because this is imperative to really look at. And it first starts, of course, the drop-off. It talks about Clifford coming out, had an admirable weekend. It had a 5-day opening, so it's a little hard to compare. It opened Wednesday. It took in about $20 million at the box office. But what's key to remember is that Clifford also had a concurrent day and date release on Paramount+. So, this is again, these publications are starting to realize that this is indeed doing a lot of damage financially to these films, to these Hollywood studios, to do this day and date release, because it's not helping either the streaming services or the box office. And they're finally coming to this realization. So let's go into the article here. Paramount's Clifford the Big Red Dog is much higher than studio 15 to 17 million in industry projections, despite its availability on Paramount Plus with 22 million in 5 days and 16.3 million for the weekend. The movie is on an exclusive theatrical window in Canada, which repped 6% of the weekend's ticket sales, and unlike Paramount's release of Paw Patrol, has a number 2 circuit. Regal as part of its 3,700 theater count. As again, many of these theater chains with these day and date releases are just simply refusing to show these films. They are sticking it to the studios. They're saying nope, and good for them. That's absolutely what they should be doing. Other theater chains are affording these movies opportunity as they did with Black Widow, for example. But, of course, the rental agreements are radically shifting from where they were 2 years ago. They're not getting these wild numbers up front in the first few weeks like they used to. And because there's no reason for these theaters to basically give these film studios free use of their very valuable exhibition real estate when they're also running it in another format. The theaters don't have this thing exclusively like they used to. If you think about a movie that would sit in a theater for 3 months, and then it would be another 1, 2, 3 months before that movie would release on, say, DVD or Blu-ray or on premium video on demand or rental or something like this. That's not happening anymore. Shang-Chi drops in a theater, and then 59 or 60 days later, it's on Disney Plus for free. That is a very, very different type of exhibition window, even with 45 days of exclusivity, same as with Eternals, so that theaters are not apt or not inclined at all, and should not be, and are not, to give these kind of movie studios the same rental agreements or profit sharing or revenue sharing agreements that they were getting just a couple of years ago. Disney CEO Bob Chapek doesn't have any skin in Clifford, but he does have a studio which is the leader in family product and thus has the power to leverage and determine how the industry releases films in the future. And the whole hybrid theatrical release of Clifford only brings to mind something Chapek said earlier this week on Disney's Q4 call, where he expressed the conglomerate sticking it to a flexible theatrical Disney Plus distribution plan in the near future because, quote, we're still unsure in terms of how the marketplace is going to react when films come back with a theatrical first window, family films in particular. And I love this article next. Or this paragraph in this article next. I call BS on that one. It's okay for theme parks to be open during the C word, which doubled revenue to $5.45 billion in Q4 for Disney is what he's referring to. But families are hesitant to come to a movie theater? You still have to go indoors at a crowded theme park and touch guardrails, etc. I don't buy the reasoning. The box office numbers are proof that there's an audience out there for family features, and Clifford is clearly over-indexing. How much more could it have done without Paramount Plus? How much indeed, folks? How much Indeed. More proof that families are heading to the box office. Analytics Corporation Intelligence, which we have quoted some of their reports here on this channel before, reports that Clifford on Veterans Day saw close to half of its audience before 3 p.m. and close to 40% of admissions on Saturday before 3 p.m., on par with Addams Family 2. 2 million have seen Clifford to date versus Eternal's weekend 2 admissions of 2.2 million. Why so close? Average ticket price on Saturday was $10.61 for Clifford and $12.23, $12.23 for Eternals. What does that mean? What is the importance of when they're seeing this? Because movie tickets are cheaper before 3 and 4 o'clock, right? You take a family, a bunch of kids, you go see the matinee, you go see the early shows, you go see the morning shows, the early afternoon shows with kids like this. In other words, if you adjusted these ticket sales to match, if everybody had gone to see Clifford the dog at the same time they went to go see Eternals, Eternals would have had a very tough time holding on to first place this weekend. It almost would not have. So this is the point. Clifford was only 10% behind. 2 million ticket sales versus 2.2, meaning that families are getting out there, which is exactly what we've been saying. You have to deliver the content. Even Disney, 20th Century Studios' Ron's Gone Wrong, which was a clunker in its opening weekend with 7.3 million, is seeing solid holds after a 4.6 decline last weekend 3, with the movie easing negative 37% in its current weekend 4 with 2.2 million, taking its total to 20. All right, now they're talking about the vax stuff with kids and all this kind of stuff. I don't want to get into that, but the point is that what this article is trying to get across is that, you know, where is this comparison? Why are we still blaming the effects of the pandemic on this when, and I have said before, not just with family movies like this we have coming out, but they're going to these theme parks. They're going to sporting events. They're going to concerts. They're doing all of this kind of stuff. This has not really affected any other large entertainment venue like they are claiming it's affecting movies. So it must be something else. And as I've said, that something else, generally speaking, is the content they're putting out right now. So, furthermore, I'm going to skip down here. Film finance sources inform me that of all the genres, hybrid releases for family movies are the worst. If a family audience sees the movie in a theater, they'll see it again and again in future ancillaries. Collapsing windows only robs the studios of money. Why is Paramount doing this with Clifford? Because with a limited amount of Viacom brands, especially intriguing product on their streaming service, they are starving for subs, which stands at 46.3 million worldwide across all of its streaming services. The conglomerate is hoping, or the conglomerate, it was what that's short for, I should have said that earlier, is hoping for a 65 to 75 million subscriber by the end of 24, a figure that greatly trails Disney Plus's current worldwide muscle of 118.1. While it's not ideal for exhibition to compete with a streaming service at home, they too are so desperate for a rebound that they'd agree to play a day-and-date release. That is, until they can't put their foot down and squarely refuse such fare from the studios. And there it is. They are reluctantly accepting these films in. They're just simply not offering the same terms like they used to. But it's getting to the point now where the foot is going to come down. And this is why I think going forward in 2022, there's going to be another big shift with these exhibitioners, these studios that think they're going to get away with day-and-date streaming. The theaters are reaching a point now where they can easily not only just say, okay, we're going to reduce the terms on the contract and the rental agreements that you're getting. Now they might just move straight on to, you ain't getting in. Stick your movie on your streaming service and have a nice day. We don't care. And I hope they do. I hope that day comes sooner rather than later. This does go into a lot more detail. I want to just see if there's anything else in here I wanted to bring up. Okay, let's just take this last part. While the C word, while the coof will be in the rearview mirror, God willing, I think change in consumer behavior will be more permanent, added Chapek earlier this week. I don't exactly agree with that. This is the author speaking. I think it's more about Disney missing their sub numbers, which sent their stock tumbling 10%. And that's due to the backlog of their production series line. Disney and Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, etc. has brands that are the envy of the entire town. Disney needs to be careful not to dilute that. If you are making a film available, in both homes and theaters simultaneously, then what's the premium value of that? Did Black Widow trigger more signups than the availability of Labor Day theatrical release Shang-Chi this weekend on Disney+? Or is the better question to ask, will binge Marvel series Hawkeye and Lucasfilm's Book of Boba Fett, which are exclusively on Disney Plus this holiday season, and not in theaters, spur more subs? Exclusivity, whether it is theatrical or simply Disney Plus, are the respective drivers to either medium. Disney will get their stock back up. I don't think it's down on account of keeping their movies on a theatrical window. They just need more new product on Disney Plus, and that will flood, and that flood will certainly come. But in the meantime, don't burn down the House of Mouse to keep you warm. Well said. Well said, sir. Well said. Deadline, I agree with you on, I think everything pretty much in there, for the most part. I think it's well said, and it's way overdue. So here we are. We are here now. We are here where we are with Marvel Studios, with 2 box office fails in a row. That these 2 movies, Shang-Chi and Eternals, are going to cost Disney money. They're not going to make any money at the box office, and they then immediately get released for free. At least Shang-Chi is. No official word yet on Eternals, but I assume that the same thing is going to happen. But that's it. That basically cuts their legs off, because once they have that theatrical run, they are now almost immediately shunted onto a service where you don't have to pay a premium to watch it again. If you're already paying the $8 a month or so for Disney Plus, you've got Eternals, you've got Shang-Chi, you've got Black Widow. It really doesn't matter. No Blu-ray sales, DVD sales. You cut all that out. Even though they are still producing the discs, they will sell some. They are not going to sell anywhere near the number that they have been accustomed to for previous theatrical releases in the secondary market. So keep your eyes peeled. Eternals is pretty much a turkey at this point. It's done and over. Not much more to talk about it on this. I think we've beaten that dead horse enough, and we're going to move on, because we've got some other good stuff coming out, because next weekend, whatever air that was still in the room for Eternals is going to get sucked out toot sweet by Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, while this might not have a $100 million opening weekend, I have a feeling that Ghostbusters, provided it's very well received and the audiences really love it and the critics enjoy it, but more so the audiences and the word of mouth, I think that's a movie that could grow some pretty good legs over time. And again, to my understanding is, the budget for that one wasn't outrageous. We're not talking about Marvel levels here, so much lower hurdle to cross. And I wonder what's going to happen with Marvel movies going forward in terms of their production budgets. Again, I'm sure that's getting looked at very much at this point by Mr. Chapek, because Feige's letting everything go through as it is. We'll see. We'll see. Till the next time, take care. Glad to see everybody here. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Hit the notification bell. Do all that fun stuff. Leave a comment before you head out. And until next time, take care.